All right, John. So we're having a conversation about how you start the process of looking for space if you're a tenant. I guess the first step really would be trying to find a broker, right? So what do you look for in a broker?
Sure. If you're a tenant looking for new space, there's a lot of great brokers in the DC metro area. Some of the brokerage firms are the big international ones that do the landlord and tenant rep. Some of them are focused solely on tenant work. And then sometimes you've got the more local brokers who maybe specialize in the smaller or like unique deals. But they also do the very big deals too. So the pros and cons, all those approaches, and that's really a personal decision for the tenant client to make.
So do some of these brokers focus on particular localities, or are some of them just covering the whole waterfront?
I would say that's true. Some of the smaller ones may focus on a particular submarket or maybe even downtown. Sometimes the question is, do you go with a huge international broker that has a landlord and tenant practice, where it's not uncommon at all to have the same brokerage agency do the landlord and the tenant rep on the same deal? Normally that's no problem whatsoever. They're all professionals. But the tenant brokers argue that since they only focus on the tenant side, they have no conflict of interest. And again, there's pros and cons to all that, and it's up for the tenant client to make the decision to who they're most comfortable with. I work with all of them. I think they're all fantastic.
So what process do you use to start to evaluate picking between one broker versus another?
Normally they come in, on a sizable deal, let's say 20,000 square foot plus, maybe a little more. You probably select 4 or 5 that you're interested in, and normally they compete. They come in, they do a pitch, they tell you what they're good at, what their experience is, what they can offer. These guys, it's a very competitive industry, so often they do a lot of work even after the lease is done. Sometimes these brokers will do sort of a free audit each year, not quite an audit, but they will look at your operating expenses for the whole length of the term, make sure you're getting the deal that you bargained for. And just other things. They work with a landlord because they want to keep the work and they want to get the renewal or the next deal. So it's a long-term relationship that normally lasts for a while. So they come in, do a pitch, and then the tenants has to decide who they're comfortable with.
That process, we just went through it with our own space needs, picking a broker, finding space, and we used a request for proposal process. Is that pretty standard?
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard, especially for a tenant taking half a floor or more. Sometimes on the smaller deals, it may just be they have a relationship with a broker, they have a contact, and they don't need to go through that long process. They already have a relationship.
Are you seeing anything standard in the market in terms of commissions that are standard for commercial broker-tenant relationships now?
It's pretty typically standard. So occasionally I'm asked to take a look at the listing agreement or the commission agreement, and there's a couple markups that are typical, but those forms, in my experience, are not heavily negotiated.